Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Now, look, I have to admit, I am going to title this episode the North Korean Mega Tank. I apologize. You probably got clickbaited. Because is it a mega tank? Is it a super tank? I mean, that's what the North Koreans are saying. But I got to tell you, it doesn't pass the eyeball test for a number of reasons. And I'm going to show you examples, obviously, of a U.S. Abrams and a Russian T-90, T-90M as well. So as I initially looked at this armored vehicle, a couple of things really stood out. One of the biggest things is the ballistic skirts here. Specifically these. Very strange. Do you see how these are very thick ballistic skirts. I'm not sure if they're trying to lead people to believe this is some sort of reactive armor, possibly NERA, possibly just normal passive armor. I don't know. The only really way to tell would be to get up close enough where you could touch and bang on it a little bit, so to speak. But just looking at the side skirts on this tank, I'm not even sure how they would service the track. There's lots to be done to maintain a main battle tank, and one of the biggest challenges, especially on an Abrams, is track health. Getting into the road wheels, the sprockets, doing track tension. You have to do track tension on Abrams. I don't know if you would need to do that on these, or even the a Russian T-90. I'm sure someone who is a expert on T variant, T-72, T-80, T-90 variant main battle tanks would have the ability to comment in the comment section about Russian track tension. But it's pretty important with the Abrams. You have to have appropriate track tension where you don't throw a track, especially in areas like operating in Ukraine. A lot of mud, a lot of ruts. Without that proper track tension, you're going to pop your track or pop a sprocket. Something's going to happen. But and then another issue with this tank is how far forward these very thick, in appearance, ballistic skirts go forward. They go past the hull of the tank. If you look here, you can see, again, this is the hull of the tank, and they probably go forward a good 6 inches, which is kind of strange. If you go over and you look at an Abrams, and these are the ballistic skirts that I'm talking about. Now, these look much less thicker than the North Korean main battle tank, but this tank, in size and dimensions, is going to be smaller than this Abrams. I'm guessing this is a 55-ton tank. This is pushing 70 tons. The ballistic skirts on these Abrams are very thick. When you actually get close to the tank and you put your hand near these ballistic skirts, and especially if you open these ballistic skirts up, you loosen a bolt here, and then you turn around and your back is facing the ballistic skirt, and you put both hands kind of at knee level, and you kind of like you're deadlifting, and you lift this up at the same time you're popping this cotter pin out, and then you can open this ballistic skirt. Now, you don't want to ever open two ballistic skirts at the same time. You open this ballistic skirt and this ballistic skirt at the same time to get into the track. It's going to be very difficult to close these ballistic skirts. It's also possibly that they could break because you're putting so much weight here that it'll just cause a malfunction, so to speak. But again, you can get to the track, and the ballistic skirts on the Abrams go about mid-length, and this is just very thin metal here. These aren't ballistic skirts. These are just basically act as mud guards and don't serve much purpose. This serves the purpose, whereas not so much. These are not ballistic skirts. These are. But back to the North Korean tank. Again, we don't know how heavy this tank is, but again, you look at the track. Now, this is pretty common with Russian tanks. If you look at the track on this tank, and you look at the track on the Abrams, what do you notice? What can you tell me? Track pads. See the track pads? So when you go out into the field and you come back from the field, the command is going to look at your track pads. And if your track pads are beaten up and they're not nice and smooth as this, because these things will just tear up roads if you don't have good track pads. So it's always important as a tanker on an Abrams to make sure these track pads there's upkeep on them. You're replacing them where they don't ultimately look like this, because these are just going to eat up your internal roadways if you're road marching on an actual road, a paved highway. They're utterly going to destroy those roads. So that's why you have those track pads. And I don't know if you look at even the Russian T90M, T90, you can see there's no track pads on them. So don't completely know what the story is behind that or why the Russians don't use them. Maybe the tanks they're just not as heavy as the Abrams, so it's just not something where they're going to see the same kind of road destruction. Or it could be the roads within Russia are made better. I know here in the States, the roads are made differently. So cold weather, especially in some areas, you'll see the roadways start to deteriorate a lot quicker. So I don't know, maybe someone else can answer that. But again, even with these tanks, you can get in and you can do track maintenance on these vehicles. Whereas again, if you look at this North Korean super tank, again, not so much. And I'm assuming that this is some sort of reactive armor. Again, you can see it's pretty thick. Now the next issue that comes up as we kind of move up from the hull towards the turret is this area here. You got some sort of active defensive system, I'm assuming, or it's the ability to pop smoke here. So it's some sort of active defensive system, either smoke or some capability to possibly shoot down an incoming anti-tank guided weapon system. Who knows? We saw the T-14 Armada was deploying something very, very similar to this. So again, very, very difficult to say. But what is even more interesting is this armor? Is this actually armor, or are they trying to make the tank resemble an Abrams? For me, looking at this tank, it looks like someone in the design bureau or someone who has input to the design bureau of this armored vehicle is a fan of the Abrams and is trying to make it look somewhat like a Western main battle tank. But again, you can see here, I mean, this looks like it's fairly thick welded steel, but you get to this area here and it looks like a facade. It looks like it's just very thin metal that is here. Now, what's under this here, I don't know. Difficult to say. Again, until you actually get next to the tank and have a look at it, it's difficult to say. Near the this very large hole for the what I assume is the coaxial machine gun. Again, this appears to be fairly thick. You have rudimentary, very small, very flimsy looking reactive armor tiles on the front. And they really look like they've been haphazardly placed in these positions here. Again, I think a novice looking at this vehicle initially looks at this and goes, "Oh, this is cool." But maybe not so much. If you look at the Russian tank, again, you can see this reactive armor is covering the entire frontal aspect of the tank. Completely, entirely. And you can see it's just better design, better fabrication, thicker, more robust than what you're seeing from this North Korean mega tank. So look at the driver hatch here. See how thin that is? It is incredibly thin. And then the vision blocks for the driver are actually in the hull of the tank, and they're very small. Let's go look at it on the Abrams. So the vision blocks for the Abrams are actually on the driver's hatch, and this is a very thick driver's hatch. I mean, this is a thick piece of steel. I mean, you have to really be in the tank feeling it with your hands because it also drops down and there's additional thickness below as well. And these periscopes offer really good degrees of viewing what's around you. You can see how thick they are. You can also see that you can from being buttoned up, you can wipe the glass down with some wipers, and they actually have some water. You can press this little, I'll just call it a thingamajiggy, and it provides water where you can wipe your vision blocks down while being closed. If you want to wipe these down, you're going to have to drop the vision block or just open up the hatch or have your friendly loader hop down and clean it off for you if you need be. And I guess you could do that possibly as well, but obviously this is a three-person main battle tank. You don't have a loader in this tank. I'm guessing you have a gunner, a tank commander, and there's an auto-loading system. But again, very small vision blocks, and the same with the Russian tanks as well. They can only look directly forward. Your peripheral vision, so to speak, is really kind of blocked off by this additional armor they've placed here on the front of the hull. So same scenario with these Russian tanks. Not the best view. Now we're at a different distance, so I'm sure as you get closer, these are probably going to look a little bigger, especially in terms of this Korean tank. And then we keep moving around the tank. You'll notice you have some optics, essentially three different sets of optics here. I'm guessing this is the I actually, let me back up. I don't think that's an actual optic. I think that's the tank commander periscope. So if he's buttoned up, he can look out of the tank. But these two are definitely gunnery optics. I'm guessing that this is going to be the optic, both thermal imaging and just a normal daylight camera for the main gun. And I'm guessing that this one up here is going to be for the anti-tank guided weapon system that's over here. This is probably a wind sensor, I'm thinking. If you would jump over to the Abrams, I don't even see if you can see back here. This is the wind sensor for the Abrams. You can take this and you can lower this if you need to, and where it's not sticking up. Most of the time you have it up though, if you're shooting. But again, if you look at this frontal aspect of this turret, I'm not so sure about this. It looks very thin in terms of armor. If you go to the Abrams, and I call it the punch test, take your fist and just pound on that, it's like hitting the side of a mountain, a rock mountain. You hear nothing. You pound the side or parts of, say, a Bradley or like a Marine Amtrax, it's dong, 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 dong. You can hear it's very light armor. But here, you can clearly see when you get close to this beast where the weld's at, just how thick the armor is. Like right here, you can see the thickness. This is the weld for the Abrams. So you can literally, I was able to take the end of my elbow into the tip of my hand, and that's how thick the armor is. And you can actually, again, take a hammer and bang, and you can feel some of the armor spacing that's in here too. So you'll hit, you'll know that there's, again, layers of armor in this area here. And again, the same with the turret. I have a hunch that if I were to take a hammer and hit here, I'm getting dong, 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 like a hollow sound. And this isn't really armor at all. Now maybe there's a cast turret under this that maybe they're using the North Koreans have a lot of T-62s, T-55s. They have some, I believe they have some T-72s. But again, it's really difficult to say what's under here. Another really strange thing to note with this tank is, what is this slab here? I don't know if this is just like additional armor protection that they've decided to put here. I don't know. Again, and very thick. Incredibly thick. And then you have to ask, like, what are these boxes here? Is this some sort of radar system? And you can see another one over here for some sort of active protection system. I don't know. I'm sure someone else out there who's has much more knowledge about these North Korean tanks could probably discuss. But clearly, again, just looking at it, it looks like they're trying to create something that really doesn't exist. I'm not sure if this is some sort of prototype or series of prototypes that they've manufactured, or some sort of limited production run that exists. Who knows? It's also up here, you notice it's got either a 30 millimeter or 40 millimeter grenade launcher. So instead of like a 50 caliber up here, they're using this 30-40 Mike grenade launcher that's up here. I'm guessing it's a remote controlled weapon system from inside the tank. I'm guessing. But again, I don't know. I would not classify this as something the West is tremendously worried about. I would assume that the North Koreans could have just taken and upgraded a T-62 variant main battle tank, T-72 variant main battle tank, and probably come very close to capability in terms of what they're trying to do here with this. And again, it just really just haphazardly designed. Look at the way the reactive armor has been positioned here. I mean, it doesn't cover very much of the tank. And again, I'd have to ask and question the effectiveness of this reactive armor. It doesn't look like the same reactive armor that, in terms of quality, that the Russians have deployed on their tanks. There's been some videos where you'll see, say, a Bradley engaging a T-90 or what have you, and you'll see this explosion and these sparks coming off the T-90. Well, that's the reactive armor detonating, and the reactive armor is actually doing its job. It's not the fact that the Bradley is killing the T-90. The T-90's reactive armor is in fact defeating the Bradley 25 Mike that is impacting on the turret. Is what's happening. So again, going back over, you can see just the higher quality that is in these Russian tanks, and obviously the higher quality that's in the American tanks versus what you have with these North Korean tanks. Is it a mega tank? It is not. It is absolutely not that. It is a haphazardly designed tank. I think they tried to, for possibly political, possibly PR reasons, they tried to create something that looks like a crossover between a Western Abrams with some capabilities you would see on a Russian main battle tank in terms of the reactive armor. I think that's what we're looking at. But again, I would say at this point, again, definitely not a super tank. Have a good day.